Welcome back. So that's Nigeria's Governors Forum. Governor Dakpa Abiodun speaking on their behalf. We know there will be teething problem. We're expecting all of that. One of the things Nigerians should expect, besides the good part, is that policing will now be closer to the people. That is the bigger picture. So we'll respect more effectiveness, of policing across communities, across state. But we also know that it will be abused by some persons. So that's why the legislation in framing these laws is going to be in the Constitution, and then the details will be maybe in an act establishing state police. We'll be able to know exactly how far they can go, because even with the ones they have, like local government and state houses of assembly, some of these governors make a mess of what democracy really is. They are the ones that some of them will shout about federalism, but within their states is nothing close to federalism. But we cannot throw the baby and the bathwater all in one. But let's bring in our guest, Mr. Dayo Akintobi, joins us right here in our Lagos City. Thank God it's Friday.
Some of us don't like Fridays, some of us prefer Mondays. But thank God it's Fridays. Yeah. Weekend is time for rest and rejuvenation.
Well, we work. We always work.
Yes.
By the way, tomorrow is Ekiti election, so everyone literally is going to be watching what's playing out. In fact, the election, the troubles, permit me to use that word, the troubles in the country has overshadowed whatever election. Sometimes people don't even know there's an election tomorrow. We have to remind them there's an election. Even maybe people in Ekiti, some may not even be conscious because of the economic situation, security situation that has taken the shine. But for your information, June the 20th, Ekiti people will be deciding whether they'll keep the job of the governor or they will look for someone else. Some candidates have already indicated interest. But let's go to this Nigeria, if this Nigeria is ready. This Nigeria is where we started from. Ekiti. Gladiators go to war tomorrow. 1.03 million voters to decide Oyebanji Oluyode orders fate as INEC assures of free poll. So that's the last time we had over. Ekiti is a small state in terms of the numbers of registered voters, the population, and even accredited voters. So I have some of the data. The last time we saw over 1 million people registered to vote in an Ekiti election was in 1999, actually. And voter turnout was averaging around 40-something%. If you do the analytics, you see that voter turnout in Ekiti is 30-something, let's just say 40+%. The highest was in 2010 during the second coming of Ayo Fayose, which was about 73 or 74% in terms of outliers. But the total people that came out to vote in that election were still less than 500,000. What do you make of this tomorrow?
Well, I think the fact that they have 1 million plus registered voters is a plus. I think that's quite an impressive number for a state as small as Ekiti. I don't quite know what the population is, but 1 million
it's
registered.
About 3 point something million.
Well, 1 million registered voters is not bad, considering that quite a number of the citizens are underage and not eligible to vote anyway. So I saw the run-up, the preparations. I saw the materials being delivered. I saw the security presence. I listened to the INEC people talking about their preparations. And this election might actually kind of be a barometer for 2027 that will help us begin to see how 2027 elections might play out. So this might be a test run of sorts. In terms of the contestants, the incumbent governor is very quiet, introspective, seriously focused type of politician, and feelers from the population, people seem to think he's done quite well. If anything is going to affect his candidacy at all, it's the general malaise that affects the entire country in terms of the fact that the economy is tough, insecurity is rife. Nobody is exempt from that in any corner of Nigeria at the moment. So if he's got any drawbacks, it's that general perception of the fact that the country is not in a good place at this point in time. But in terms of him individually, there seems to be acclaim.
Today is Friday, so let's not campaign for him.
No, there seems to be acclaim. No, we are not campaigning for him. We are telling the truth as the people of Ekiti see it. However, his contestants, the other people contending against him, don't seem to have wide public acclaim. I mean, the PDP candidate, for example, was interviewed by our show yesterday, and I listened to him, and even though he spoke a good game, but the people in Ekiti don't seem to know him that well, and you're wondering, he seems to be somebody who just parachuted in from somewhere, perhaps out of the country. My sense is that he's probably a diaspora Nigerian, and he's talking a good game about change.
Because of NBC rule, I try to avoid being specific.
Absolutely.
So please, because of NBC rule, let's keep it general.
Those issues are just
let's keep it as general
germane enough to determine the outcome of the election.
Absolutely.
But let's get to another paper this morning, and I'm interested on what is seen on the front page of the Guardian newspaper. Take a look at this. International Day. 40% inaccurate, false laboratory results, worsen sickle cell epidemic pains. And there is an interesting spread here, giving insight into the challenge of sickle cell disease in the country, to be precise. You see 150,000 annual sickle cell disease births. Nigeria accounts for half of the world's annual sickle cell births, causing immense family pain. There is the price of ignorance. Of course, that's a no-brainer for those seeking to get married and do not, find out what their genotype is. Families face psychological trauma, financial exhaustion. There's also shifts to earlier screening, mandatory lab verification. There's another one here, Ms. Akintobi. 80% of broken marriages, genotype incompatibility is frequently cited as the root cause of irreconcilable differences in divorce. And there's more information on this on the front page, but talk to us about this expose the Guardian is giving us, and in 2026, why is research still slow in democratizing cures that have been found for sickle cell disease?
Well, what that report is just basically saying is indicting a lot of laboratories in terms of the testing procedure to be able to properly identify carriers of this trait. And I think there's enough awareness out there now to where premarital counseling, one of the things they particularly prescribe is go and know your genotype, because if two carriers get married or come together, the chances of them producing a child with sickle cell disease is quite high. And it's unconscionable to bring a child, an innocent child, into the world to come and suffer and probably even have a very short life expectancy, because that's what this disease does. It essentially inhibits the production of red blood cells, which are necessary for life. So what that report is saying is that investigations have shown that quite a lot of the misinformation is coming from wrong diagnosis, corrupt laboratories.
And through that, I've had to do my genotype twice and have had two different results.
Yeah. So this is what is happening, is that the inconsistencies and inefficiencies of laboratory testing is inadvertently causing people to give birth to children or offspring with sickle cell trait, not because they did it intentionally. In the past, parents used to say, well, God will protect, it's not my portion. But as people have become more aware and more enlightened, they've taken it upon themselves to be aware of the genotype of their partners, and if they're both carriers, both AS or an AS and an SS, they will go their separate ways and go and marry other people, because they recognize the fact that the suffering behind carrying the sickle cell disease is one that is really quite traumatic, both for the child and for the parent who has to care for the child. So people will sacrifice love to be able to avoid having to go through that trauma. But now, despite the efforts, what this report is saying, despite the efforts of individuals to avoid this kind of thing happening, labs are making it happen, because of negligence, and in some cases because of corruption. There are places where you are AS, but you are given an AA result, which will lead you to falsely believe you are clear and go ahead and marry somebody who might have the AS gene as well. So it all goes down to a lackadaisical work ethic, corruption as always. There are some people who, for various reasons, prefer to shield their status and are ready to pay to get a false report. So I think regulation is important at the end of the day. So much of what we do on a daily basis requires government intervention and oversight. I mean, who regulates the labs? Who monitors them? Who assures that they maintain the standards that are necessary for accurate testing and reporting? So who do we blame at the end of the day? I know that there are government agencies that should be monitoring these kind of things, but government itself is a bit distracted at the moment with issues of insecurity and issues of how to rejig the economy in such a way as to better the lives of Nigerians. So who is looking at these things? But at the end of the day, it's our future that's affected, because if we continue to bring children into the world that have this problem, first of all, it creates a burden on the healthcare system. It also is very expensive. And if you've seen the suffering of a sickle cell carrier, it'll break your heart. When they are in a crisis, it'll break your heart to see that this could have been avoided. So we need to do everything we can to make sure that these lapses do not occur. These are the lives of human beings we're talking about, both the carrier and the carer. Both of them are traumatized by this.
Okay, before we leave the Guardian, I think we have some more time. So let's look at that story above the nameplate, somewhere around that talks about import surge. Nigeria pays 1.9 trillion naira on petrol in May amid dip in oil prices. So importation of, I just wanted to read some part of the story. According to the Guardian newspaper, importation of PMS surged in May by 59.5%, as Nigerians spent 1.9 on petrol, despite a slide in oil prices. I just need to read that first header. So what do you make of this story?
Well, look, this Iran, Israel, US altercation has had a global impact on the entire...
This one is beyond the altercation. This is a conflict. It's a full-blown conflict.
Okay, so maybe I'm being euphemistic here so that NBC doesn't come down on us this morning. Anyway, look, as you were saying earlier, bottom line is they've come to an agreement. There's a ceasefire. They're going to sign it today in Switzerland, and oil prices will immediately react. In fact, it already started sliding, really, and we expect it to reduce further. Question for us on this end of the pond, of this end of the big pond, is how will it affect us? Will we immediately begin to see changes in the pump price? Well, the penchant of our marketers to say, well, we're still selling old stock and we paid for the old stock at high prices, so we can't take a loss. We will liquidate all of the old stock before prices can adjust. Well, issue is Dangote Refinery claims he can supply enough to meet our daily demand. Nonetheless, marketers still insist on importing. Government is still giving import licenses. Dangote is exporting refined fuel, despite the fact that Nigeria needs much more from him, because his particular supply can be price controlled. It doesn't incur transport costs. It doesn't incur so many other things. So I still think...
No, it incurs everything. I think that's the...
It doesn't incur international shipping fee.
But there's still premium on whatever is happening in the local. It incurs costs.
Jeffrey can afford to buy petrol even if it were 1,500 naira per liter.
No, it's for the sake of facts. It's for the sake of facts. It has not defending or whatever, just for facts reason and for people to understand how the system works.
Yes.
It's a 650,000 barrel production capacity per day.
Yes.
The NNPCL is not able to give him even up to half. In fact, recently they increased it.
Yes.
So he has to go and buy from somewhere.
Yes.
So even at some point, greater percentage of what he refines come from maybe WTI, from Western Texas intermediate crude and every other place he buys.
Yes.
So that's a cost component.
Yes.
Then the one from Nigeria adds to it.
Exactly. The one he gets from Nigeria doesn't incur transport costs.
Well, the Nigerian government hasn't given him subsidy from what we know, which is what they started for in the fiscal element. So
it's not subsidy that is the component of the one he gets from Nigeria now. That's not subsidy. We're talking about getting crude oil from Nigeria, part of the crude oil for production.
How do you think it works? He doesn't own a ship. He doesn't own the crude. He has to buy
the
from
ship
the
doesn't come from the Atlantic unlike the others.
No, it doesn't matter.
That's the point.
There's a premium on that's what I'm explaining to you. You're looking at it straight like that. It doesn't work like that.
Okay.
There's still a premium.
Tell us how it works.
Is it the same value?
Because the commodity
of the
is
cost
priced.
incurred for shipping from other countries outside the world.
You can put
is it the same value?
You can put the logistics in terms of differentials. But what we're saying is that crude is priced in dollars.
Yes.
Let me say it again, crude is priced in dollars.
Yes.
So he's not going to buy it differently, except the government use fiscal measures to cut down his own price.
Right, but our point is that the one that he gets from NNPC in Nigeria does not incur international shipping costs. So however small that however small that quantum of crude that he's getting locally, that quantum should have less production cost than the one he's bringing from overseas, because he's not incurring international shipping fees. That's all I'm saying.
No, go ahead. I think I've explained myself. I don't know what else to explain.
I get you. That it amortizes by the time you
exactly.
I get what you're saying. I understand. But the larger issue is, how do we bring succor to Nigerian consumers?
Which is the more important question.
Absolutely. And so, we will begin to see Brent continue to slide as, the agreement comes into place. And so we will hope that
people like Bukola and I, we want to buy it lesser, but let's see how it goes.
You think I don't want to buy it lesser too? And every Nigerian watching us today,
it's super expensive. So
yes, it is.
When we put out these facts, it's not as if we're backing, just to put the facts out so that people can know what the details are.
Yes, indeed.
But I don't think even the government wants to buy it for cheaper.
Absolutely.
We have other papers this morning, right?
No, I think we okay, yeah. Bukola, you can go to the next one.
Yes, and the Vanguard, ideally, is the next this morning. Of course, at the top of the nameplate, I see that it also covers the oil conversation. But the big story from the Vanguard is where we actually, built upon at the start of the program this morning. The challenge of insecurity and the intervention that now seems to have gained a groundswell of support from 36 state governors, for which they briefed the press yesterday. Look at the big story. Insecurity. Governors seek swift establishment of state police, and there are some riders here say there's a need for state police to be constitutionally sound and aligned with federalism and citizens' rights. State attorneys general to review proposed constitutional amendments, frameworks for state police, reiterate commitment to ongoing power sector reforms. Of course, that's another outcome of that meeting yesterday. But so much alignments and conversations around state police. But does that take us to where we actually need in terms of, the outcomes, the results, quicker response time, the issue of welfare, the issue of, faster, quicker recruitment into the force at the state level now, this time around, and better management of crime. The, all-important age-long conversation of the ratio of police to people. Will all of these be solved after, we get around this constitutional debate on state police?
Well, clearly, state police is an idea whose time has come. And one of the things I was pleased about yesterday from the governor's report in terms of after the meeting was that they seem to be rather concerned about protecting the rights of citizens, which to me has always been the bogey in the room in terms of state police, has been concerns about abuses. And if anyone is going to abuse it at all, it will be the state governors. So the fact that they themselves are talking about ensuring that there's a constitutional framework that protects the rights of citizens, that tells me that we are on the right track. Now, the benefits of state policing are they're numerous, too numerous to count. You mentioned a few in terms of the quickness of response, the fact that command and control is localized and most of the recruits are local people. There's something else I also heard yesterday, I don't know if it was the IGP, who said that the establishment of state police will not lead to loss of jobs in the federal police, because that was another big concern, was that the rank and file of the Nigerian police force were getting concerned that if the state police, the personnel ranks of the federal police will shrink, and so there might be job losses. But there was assurances yesterday that that's not going to happen. I'm also happy that attorneys generals of the 36 states are also coming together to look at the way to do the legal framework that will enable efficient operations, while at the same time not only just achieving the objective but minimizing abuse or inhibiting intentional use of the state police for either political purposes, personal agendas, things as frivolous as VIP escorts and things like that, which were abuses we saw with the federal police. I think by and large there will be a teething period when you do things like this that are completely radical changes from the norm. You go through a teething or a gestation period where there will be little bumps in the road, but we will learn as we go. That's not a reason not to do it out of a fear of the fact that there could be lapses here and there. So I think after the teething period is over, for me the concerns are issues of training, issues of funding, issues of recruitment, standardization of recruitment, because we don't want a situation where, the people being brought into state police are relatives of the political elite of the state or, party favorites, because we've seen that in some of the recruitment within the paramilitary, the vigilante groups set up by the various states. We've seen it as a reward for those who worked for the party in elections. As part of their reward, they allow them to nominate 5 or 6 people to be employed by, the vigilante, forces. So that should not happen within state police, to where it becomes a reward system for political, affiliation. It should be based on merit. It should be people who are screened properly, who are trained properly, who have no criminal record, who have a background that can pass some type of screening. So I look forward to it happening. I think it will help in this fight against insecurity. I think when you have people who are recruited from your ranks, your neighbors, you are more comfortable to go and tell them things.
But wouldn't this constitutional debate and the eventual plans for recruitment of fresh hands into what will now be a state police structure become tantamount to reinventing the wheel when we already have an outlook? There's the Civil Defense Corps, there's Neighborhood Watch, there's Amotekun, so can't that now form a state police structure, because there's already a template that addresses the all-important matter of funding, at least for these institutions?
I imagine that in many of the states that have these vigilante groups, like you said, Amotekun, Ebubeagu, those kind of things, I imagine that they will form the foundation for the state police. You don't need to go and start from scratch again when you already have a pseudo force that is structured for the exact same purpose. So I see them subsuming. I see Amotekun becoming the starting point for state police in the Southwest. And so, like you said, there's no need to go reinvent the wheel if you already have a semblance of something similar to what you're trying to achieve. You just more or less scale it up. Places like things like Amotekun, for example, they can't really carry weapons. They're not constitutionally authorized to carry weapons, and people like Agbekoya, that kind of group, I think they are allowed only Dane guns. So it's a whole different perspective, because for you to be allowed to carry arms, you have to have some type of psychological grounding. So the recruiting process will be totally different, because state police have a lot more responsibility. They need to be more grounded. They need to know the law to some extent, which perhaps Amoteku might not need to do. They need to know the law. They need to know the rights of every citizen, so that they cannot just only protect them, but not even be the one to violate those rights. Like, what's the probable cause for me to want to arrest you? I need to know what the law states in terms of me apprehending a suspect. So it's a different level. I wouldn't want us to conflate, the informal paramilitary sector with the state police that is constitutionally mandated, So yes, we have the underpinnings, and we just build on that.
So let's go to New Telegraph as we wrap up. The name below the picture on the front page of the New Telegraph: FG to evacuate over 742 Nigerians in South Africa before June the 30th. They know the match on match now. We had a conversation with the South African yesterday. Sometimes I'm trying to understand what exactly is the problem here, because on one hand, South Africa is more of a capitalist-oriented economy, which is free market. When you talk about the jobs, I don't know whether it's other Africans that take over their maybe public service jobs. I doubt, because that is, their public service. Private sector, some of these people that they are trying to chase around, we can talk about the issue of undocumented immigrants.
Right.
That's an issue. But citizens being enforcers of undocumentation is a red flag. And on the second part is, for instance, Nigerians, the typical Nigerian is not necessarily looking for a job. He's going to create jobs. Yes. So I don't know what is it taking jobs from, as far as this argument by some of these South Africans is concerned. But, politics has messed up a lot of these things because there's an election coming. But what do you make of this? June the 30th. This is not a deadline set by government. And when I listen to Cyril Ramaphosa, it doesn't look like the president is talking like a president. So what do you think is going on?
That's exactly what I was going to say, is that the government is complicit in this, the South African government, because they've not fought against this. They've not put their feet down. They've not put the hammer down and said, this is illegal, you can't do it, you have to stop. And apart from the fact that it's illegal, it's immoral as well. I mean, in this global age that we live, everybody's migrating. Migration is a global, who really comes from anywhere in particular? We all came from somewhere, and if by virtue of birth or by whatever we happen to be able to claim a particular place, that doesn't mean we can exclude, or we should exclude, other people from elsewhere. There's general xenophobic tension all over the world. I've said this before. You see places like the UK and the US tightening immigration rules. Even Canada has recently tightened its rules, but not to the point of, the citizens, breaking all laws and going out. I saw a video yesterday of, I believe it was an African, I don't know if it's a Nigerian, but I saw a video on social media yesterday where they had the man on the floor and they were beating him with plastic chairs, and they were actually trying to harm him and maim him, to where I truly believe that lives are endangered in South Africa now. If you're a foreigner, your life is really under threat, and so it behooves you to protect yourself if it means leaving the country at this time. There's anti-foreigner sentiment that is rife in South Africa right now. The ostensible reason is they said we're taking their jobs, especially Nigerians. And as Jeffrey correctly said, we don't go there to seek jobs particularly. They won't employ us in the civil service anyway. And I doubt that we would go and be seeking jobs in the private marketplace. We are entrepreneurs by nature. And most Nigerians who are there generally are traders and running various types of businesses that's contributing to their economy and employing their people as well. So for them to now give a deadline, I haven't heard the government speak up and say you can't do that, and that deadline is false, is not enforceable, and we will stand against it. I've not heard. The government's been too quiet. So I appreciate the Nigerian government saying anybody who wants to leave, we will make it possible for you to do so. We've got 700 and something people coming before the end of the month.
Yeah, on this one, we give a lot of commendation to the Nigerian government.
Absolutely.
Who are not waiting for our people to be harmed, and we look. If you chase us out of your country, you're the one that loses.
You lose.
I'm sorry,
Absolutely.
because you can't hold us down.
No.
But brothers, we know what we did for South Africa, but it's a generational gap problem. And more importantly, it's a political problem.
It's a bit more than that, Jeffrey. Have you listened to some of the sound bites? It's, tantamount more towards hatred, especially for Nigerians. And they're painting all Nigerians in South Africa with the same brush, as being responsible for some of the social vices. And it's a bit unnatural for Africans.
Some of it has to do
Africans
with
are really hospitable people. I've been to a number of other African countries, although I haven't been to South Africa, but this is really concerning. And at the African Union level, the leadership level, it really should be addressed.
Does the African Union still exist?
Good question.
I didn't even hear his voice in this Iran.
With the greatest respect, so that they will not deny me visa for the event. I see African Union as Elders Forum. Okay. They just go gather and drink tea and go.
Oh, there you go.
They don't have a bite. They themselves are criticizing themselves. This is Ruto. They need a total dismantling of that union and reorganizing
from scratch.
In fact, sometimes I feel that ECOWAS sometimes is more effective than even EU.
Yes.
Dayo Akintobi, thank you, sir.
My pleasure. Good morning, Nigeria.